Hey, what's up followers? Dave here from CNC3D. So in today's video, we're going to be taking a look at our recently updated Laser Image Engraver tool, which is found within our CNC3D Commander software. So let's just jump straight in and click on the About button within Commander. And you can see across the top here, the current version is version 1.1 beta, build 296. So if your build of Commander is 296 or greater, then this video will likely apply to you. If for some reason your version of Commander is less than 296, then you should definitely consider updating so that you can get the latest and greatest version of Commander. If for some reason you do have difficulty updating Commander, definitely get in touch with our friendly support team and we can look at getting you onto the latest platform. So let's just close out of here. Now, our Laser Image Engraver tool is found within our Creations Tools section within Commander, which is located in this Create button at the top. So we're just going to click on here. And the tool that we are referring to today is found under the Laser and Plasma section here. And it's this Laser Image Engraver option. So let's just click on that. Now I'm just going to get this window into view to make it a little bit easier for us to be able to see our actual canvas here and when we load our job. So what you will notice first at the top, really the only button that you can click on the left hand side here is the open button at the top. So let's just go ahead and click on that now. And we have a few images already saved in this folder here. For this video, let's pick this cute puppy because it just looks really cute. So we'll click on open. Now you will notice that the original image that we had there was kind of an orange color. It was actually in color mode. And the Laser Image Engraving tool has basically converted it into a grayscale image automatically. Now what you can do is you can choose to hold down the control key on your keyboard and you can roll your mouse wheel to basically zoom in and out so that you can actually see your image a little bit closer up. So let's just make that so it's just in view here. And let's go through some of the menu options that you do have. So the first thing that you will notice is we have this scale button at the top. Now the first option in here is a lock ratio option, and by default this is actually ticked. And what that means is that if we were to go through and adjust the width or the height of the image, it will proportionately adjust the other axis for us. So if we were to change this to say 50, you can see down the bottom right hand corner here that it says the output size is 50 by 66.225 millimeters at a 0.2 mil resolution. So if we were to go back in here and change this to 100, then you can see that it has adjusted it back proportionately for us and our picture looks exactly the same. So if we were to untick the lock ratio option and go in here and change our width to say 150, you can see that it has definitely widened out our puppy. So what we can do is we can get it back to normal. Let's just go back into width here, make this back to 100. And then it has proportionately got it back there. Let's just hit lock ratio so that it won't actually change the aspect of the actual image. Now, the other option here is the resolution option. And basically this is telling your CNC what kind of clarity you're really looking for in your engraving. So the default option here is 0.2 of a millimeter, which basically is saying that every 0.2 of a mil is where we're going to be doing another line for our laser. It's a pretty good number to go off. If you were doing a much smaller engraving, we would definitely recommend setting this to something like say 0.1 in order to get a bit more clarity. But we're going to leave this at 0.2 millimeters just for the purposes of this video. Now, the next option along the top here is the Adjust button. And within this menu, the first section is the Adjust Colors section. So you'll see that it's opened up this other little window here, which you can choose to drag around if you'd like. And it basically allows you to adjust the brightness and the contrast of your image. So if we adjust this slider up and down, we can see that our image is getting lighter, or we can see that our image is actually getting darker. And we can also choose to adjust our contrast up and down as well, in order for us to be able to try to get the best possible engraving that we can. For the purposes of this video, we're just going to reset this back to the original values, and we're just going to close out of here for now. Now, back in this adjust option, you'll see that we have your basic kind of alignment tools. So you have a rotate left option. You can choose to rotate right. You can choose to flip the image horizontally, and you can choose to flip it vertically. And let's just get that back to normal here by just flipping it again. And we'll even just flip this horizontally to get it back to our original image. Now, the next option underneath here is an invert image button. And basically what this will do is it will invert all of the colors of the actual image. So if something was perfectly white, it will now be perfectly black. This may be relevant for some jobs, but very rarely would most users typically use this function. But you do have the option if you wish. So feel free to experiment with that if you'd like to, but just keep in mind that all of these dark areas around the outside will also appear in your engraving as well. So we're just going to invert the image again just to go back to normal. Now, when we go into adjust, you'll see the next option under here is trim white space. So there is a trim sensitivity in here where you can choose what kind of sensitivity you're looking for, and basically it will remove any transparent areas or any white areas which are around the actual image itself. In the case of our puppy here, you can see that this area around here is basically just white. So that will actually be factored into your overall engraving. But if we go into adjust and we'll just click on this trim white space button, you can see that it has successfully trimmed that white space, but it may have made some adjustments to your overall aspect ratio. So just be aware of that if you do choose to use this option, that you may just want to go through and readjust your scale if you'd like. So we're going to leave this trimmed for now, and you can see when we go into adjust, this is now lit up over here. So we know that the white space has been applied. If you wish to remove it, simply click on here again and it will revert your image back to normal. But we'll just leave this on here for now. And the next option that we have in here is the mode. So the default engraving mode that we have in here is grayscale, but we can choose to use some dithering options. So for example, we can do this Steinberg dithering option, and you can see that it has changed the way our overall image looks. We can also choose to go into stochastic, and that will also give you a different overall image output. You're welcome to experiment with these. They basically just allow you to be able to create maybe a bit of a rustic look in your jobs, so feel free to have a play with those if you'd like. But we're just going to leave this at grayscale for now. And that basically covers all of your actual image adjustment tools, which basically prepares your image for us to be able to get it ready to go and use on your CNC. So at the top now, we're basically looking at CNC specific information. So the first option is obviously your power. Now, if we go in here, we can see that it says minimum. So this is the minimum power value. So this relates to very light or white areas and what type of power levels we would be expecting. Now, if we take a look here, we can see here that it says the machine minimum is 0. And if we go into maximum, we can see here that it has a maximum of, at the moment, it's set to 255. But our machine is actually set to 1000. So these values here, the machine maximum and the machine minimum, they are actually pulled directly from your controller. You do need to actually connect to your controller at least once in order for this information to be obtained after opening the image engraving tool. So if you wanted to do a very dark engraving, then you could choose to set this to say 1000. Now, we are going to be using one of our 30-watt lasers today on our QB2 to actually do this engraving. So it is quite a powerful laser for engraving. So we're going to reduce this number down considerably. So let's put it down to say 200, which should be 20% of the actual maximum power of the machine. So we'll leave that there. We're going to set our minimum to 0, which means that our white areas will truly be white. And then obviously you have the option here of the laser on command. Now, if you're using a Nighthawk controller, we highly recommend selecting the default option, which is M4 Dynamic. That will provide the best possible engraving for you. But if your particular controller doesn't actually support a dynamic laser mode, then feel free to choose the M3 normal mode out of this drop-down. But we're just going to leave this at M4 because we are going to be using one of our Nighthawk controllers on our QB2. So the next option across the top here is the speed. So this is basically the feed rate with which the actual job will occur at. We're going to choose something like, say, 2000 millimeters per minute for the purposes of this video, but you might need to adjust your feeds and speeds to suit the type of engraving that you're doing. In some cases, we would probably recommend that you actually do a couple of test runs first on different material to try to work out what kind of minimum and maximum power, or really maximum power values, you think are going to suit the type of engraving that you're doing. And keep in mind that both the power level and the speed will directly affect the overall output of your job. So we're just going to choose these options for now and see how it's going to go. So the next option across the top here is the setup menu. So when we go into setup, you can see that there are two options in here. The first one is your engraving angle, which the default is 45 degrees. Now, you may wish to choose a different engraving angle if you wish, and that would generally apply to, for example, if you're using a timber with a grain and you're not able to adjust how that particular stock is able to sit within your machine, you can choose to just change the actual angle with which it will engrave on. So again, a little bit of experimentation will be required to figure out what the best possible settings for your machine are. 45 degrees is a pretty good all-round value to use and will likely yield great results with your laser. So the next option under here is the start point. Now, the default option for this is bottom left, and the other option that we have is the center. And basically what that will do is that will change where the start position of the job will be, which we're going to take a look at right now. So because we've gone through and we've chosen all of our values here for the job, we're just going to click on this preview button. And this will actually load up our engraving on here. Now you can see if we hold the control key and we roll our mouse wheel, it will actually go in and zoom in on here, and we can actually see the intensity of the lines, and we can also see basically how the job will look. Now you will notice some of these red areas in here on this particular Laser Image Engraver tool is basically reflecting zero power areas. Now, if we take a look and we zoom out a bit further, we'll actually see where our axis lines are. So if we just go into here, let's just get that back into view, get it a bit bigger. And you'll see we have our y-axis here and our x-axis here, and our zero position is actually to the side. Now, if we just go back up here where it said preview, if we go to design, we can change our setup here and go back to our start point. And we're going to make this center. And now when we go to preview, it should reload our image, and we can now see that our axis lines are actually right in the center of the job. So you can choose this to be whatever the best setup for you is. Typically, if you're trying to position a particular job on a bit of stock, choosing a center position may actually be a really easy way to be able to set your zero and know exactly where your job is going to go. So we're going to leave this right now on this value, and we're going to get this ready to export. But just before we go ahead and do that, let's just go through some of the settings options. I should also mention as well, we can actually drag this slider as well, or you can click on the actual track bar and you can see how the actual job will be made. So at the top here on the right, we have this settings option, and basically you have the option of being able to adjust this particular preview window. So you can see the first thing is the line color, and there is, let me just see if I can just drag this to the side a bit. So we're going to settings, we've got our line color here. So if you right click on this, we can actually choose a different color for this. Now let's try to make it look like an actual engraving. So let's pick a kind of darkish sort of brown color here, close to black. We'll go OK to that. And then you have your 0 power color, which as you can see is currently set to red. So let's just right click on here and we can choose to make this a different color. I'm going to choose this light gray option here to keep it really simple. And then of course you have your background color. So let's just right click on that. And let's try to pick something that looks a little bit more like the MDF that we're going to be engraving this in today. So let's give that a try. And that is looking very, very good. Now, if you'd like, you can also choose to adjust your axis colors. So you can choose to say, change this to like a red color, just so you can see exactly where it is going to be. Now, the next option under the settings here is the job units. So we have recently added the ability for you to choose between setting this job up to be metric or imperial. So for those of you in the United States, if you change this to imperial, you can see down the bottom corner here that it has proportionately adjusted the size of our image to actually suit that. But we're just going to put this back into metric mode, and you can see it has reverted everything back to normal. Now, you do see this tutorial button at the top right here. Now, this particular button here is actually going to take you to our YouTube channel, so you can actually watch the video that we're watching right now. So for those of you who have already clicked on here, it's the video that we're looking at. So hopefully it should be able to help you out. Now I'm just going to move this across here back to where we were. So let's say that we are pretty happy with our engraving and we're ready to go ahead and export it. Now what we will do just before we do that, obviously we can choose to export this job. We're just going to save it. As you can see, it's kept the same name, so it's called Cute Puppy. Let's just hit save here. And that's basically gone ahead and already saved that job. Now if we go back to our main Commander window, we can actually go ahead here and connect up to our QB2. And let's just close out of here. So this is our new job sync function that you've probably encountered from using the latest version of Commander with your Nighthawk. So let's just go into our laser image engraving. And again, we're just going to click on export job. And we're just going to overwrite the original file that we had here. Now, because we are currently connected to our QB2, the laser image engraving tool already knows this, and it will give us the option of being able to upload this job directly to your Nighthawk so that you can run this job quickly and easily. So let's just say yes to this, and we're just going to wait until this update completes. And there we go. So that has now successfully updated and uploaded on our SD card of our Nighthawk controller. So we're just going to OK out of here. We're just going to close out of our sync window here. Now, what we can do as well is if you hold the control key down on your keyboard, you can again roll your mouse wheel and it will actually zoom in on our image and we can take a closer look. And you should be able to see all of the lines here. Now, if you do drag your mouse, you can actually get a close-up view of how this actual engraving is going to take place. So depending on how far you do wind your mouse wheel, you can see that we can clearly see all of the lines and the intensity of the job as well. So that pretty much summarizes how to use this tool. So we can basically go ahead now and we can go and run our job. So just keep in mind that our starting position is going to be right in the center of this engraving, and we're going to need at least 100 millimeters of space going side to side on the X and 139.636 millimeters on the Y, which is the front to back. So let's close out of this tool. Let's go out over to our QB2 and we're actually going to go ahead and run this job. So if we take a look at our job list here, let's just click on this file name field here to filter. We should be able to see that we have our Cute Puppy job. And of course, if you want to, you can obviously choose to view that SD job as well. Just be patient with it while it does load within the tool. Laser engraving jobs are typically quite large. So we can choose to right click on here and obviously observe our job. Let's just hit reset and get that back to the middle. And of course we can choose to roll our mouse wheel and go in and take a closer look as well. So let's go ahead and prepare to run this job on the SD card of our Nighthawk. Okay, so here we are in front of our QB2. We've currently got our 30-watt laser attached to the side of our spindle, and you will notice that we are not using the air assist feature of this laser. Instead, we have attached the plastic protective cup to the bottom, which is just magnetized to the base. Now, the main reason why we are choosing to use this instead is because we're actually doing a light grayscale engraving, and an air assist function would not actually produce the best engraving. So instead, we've just put our safety cup on there, and we're going to use this without any air assistance at all. So we're back in our Commander window here. The first step for us is to basically make sure that we are in laser mode. As you can see down here, it says spindle control, so we know we are currently in spindle control mode and not laser mode. So let's go up the top to the operation tab here, and we can definitely confirm it says operate using spindle. Let's change this to laser. We can see our minimum and maximum power values here match our project when we first created it. Let's update those settings. And basically the main advantage of being in laser mode is if you have a Nighthawk and the firmware version is 2.3, which you can see at the top this particular controller is, there is an awesome constant velocity engine that we have built into this particular firmware, which is activated whenever you are doing a laser engraving job and should produce spectacular results on your laser as long as you're in laser mode. Don't forget to always update your settings just to make sure that you are in the correct mode. So down the bottom here, we can now see that it says we have laser control as the option. And the first thing that we really need to do is we need to set this up so that it will run on a very low power level so that we can easily go through and basically set our 0. So let's change the number down the bottom here to say a low number like 20. So 20, and we can see the on command is M3. So let's just go ahead now and hit the on button, and we should see the laser illuminate. And there's our spot there down the bottom. Now what we're going to do, we can see it's quite wide. We're just going to change our distance underneath here to say 5 millimeters and lower this down. Let's get it down a little bit closer, and we're starting to see a better spot forming there. That looks pretty good for the purposes of setting our 0. Now let's just go ahead and try jogging our job into the middle, because we did choose to run the job from the center. So we can actually go ahead and jog this towards the side a bit here. That is looking pretty close. Maybe there we go. That's looking pretty close to the center there. So we should be pretty happy with that. Now we need to make sure that we can jog forward as our point is in the middle where the job will start. So let's just jog this forward around about 60 mil. And that looks pretty good. So let's go back into Commander. We've got our cute puppy job here in the list. Now we're going to go ahead and run a trace outline of this. So click on setup/info. And basically what we're going to do is just loading the details there, and we can see the dimensions of our job and where the start offset position is. So we're going to click on prepare an outline trace down the bottom here. And basically what we're going to do now at this point in time is we are going to go ahead and run this trace, which should basically go around and trace the outline perimeter of the job, factoring in for the 0 offset position, which we know was in the very center of the job. So let's 0 the job out first. And now we're basically going to go ahead and run this trace. Okay, so that trace is completed. That's not quite right. So let's just go ahead and redo this trace again. So we'll say yes. And now what we want to do is we're just going to try jogging this job forward about 10 mil, just to make sure that it will definitely engrave all over the surface of our stock and we won't miss any spots. Let's zero the job out again. And now let's go ahead and run our trace again. Alrighty, so it looks like we probably need to do this one more time, just moving forward by 10 mil on Y. And we'll zero the job. And let's run the trace again here. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. So we're pretty happy with that trace, so we can basically just hit no here to dismiss the trace. And now what we need to do is basically set up the focus for our laser. So to do that, we ideally want to be around 1 millimeter from the bottom of either the air assist nozzle or the plastic cup on the bottom of the laser. This is actually your ideal focal point for the actual laser. So we're just going to try jogging the machine down so that we're just above the surface of the stock. So we're going to basically, we've got our distance here set to 5 millimeters. So we're going to carefully jog this down, making sure we don't collide with the actual stock. So we'll go down 5 mil, and we'll go one more time. That's a little bit too close. So let's just change the distance to 1 and we'll jog up. That's looking pretty good. So we're pretty happy with that location. Now you can see the Z value at the top is 13.999. Let's just basically hit zero job to clear that out of there. And we are pretty much good to go ahead and run this job. Let's select it from the list here. And then on the right hand side, we're just good to hit run SD job and let's see it start. Okay, so that's actually looking pretty good. Let's actually take a bit of a closer look here. We're just going to give this a little bit of a spray with some nice gloss enamel and see exactly how it looks. So we're pretty impressed with this. There are obviously a couple of things here that we can tell. Considering we just basically guessed our values for the feeds and speeds, there were some areas that didn't quite work out exactly as we had expected. But if we were to adjust a few settings here, we could probably get a better engraving. One of the things that we would have done is probably slightly increased our power level, and we probably would have slightly decreased our feed rate as well, and that probably would have shown up some of those other areas in the beginning. But all in all, this has turned out to be quite a nice engraving. So we hope this video has been handy for you all today, and we hope you thoroughly enjoy using our Laser Image Engraver tool that's found within our Commander software. We'll continue to make Commander the best possible software that we can. So enjoy and have a wonderful day.